So often solos are all about the notes, or at least people think they're all about the notes. And while knowing what all the chord tones are, you know, for maybe C7, C minor 7, C half diminished 7, etc. If you don't know what that means, go and watch my video on chord tones, an incredibly useful thing for soloing. Pentatonics as well, great one if you want that minor pentatonic sound, and you get that major pentatonic as well. Some great shapes there, but either way, pentatonics, chord tones, learn those, got a chord tones video there. Pentatonics are a really easy shape, and I'll be covering that in a different video if it's not out already. But we're going to be talking about rhythm today, as this is such an important part of soloing, which I think so many people miss out. Well, you know, if you look at a line maybe like this, there are a lot of notes in it, and there's a lot of complicated notes in it, and you know, it's a fast line. But the rhythm completely changes the feeling of it. You could play it with awful rhythm, like it just doesn't sound as good as. And I know it's a pretty straight rhythm, but you could play around with it. And, you know, the context of it, well, not the context of it, but the feeling of it completely changes. And bad rhythm always leads to a bad solo. I can't stress it enough. No matter how much you get the notes right, if the rhythm is just not clean and all over the place, the solo will still sound all over the place, as if you're playing the wrong notes. If, you know, you've got maybe a G chord, this is just basic 1-5, and you're playing that 5 over that G, but like the rhythm's just all over the place, and it's just not, it's not good. I'm really sorry that I can't show you a better example of such poor rhythm, but either way, you'll know what it is when you hear it, and that is when you want to work on your rhythm. Even if you're playing the right notes, if your rhythm is not good, then, you know, what are you supposed to do, essentially? Which is what I want to talk about. Before I talk about some rhythmic ideas in solos, I want to talk to you about, if your rhythm is bad, what can you do? And there's one exercise which I think is great, and it doesn't require, you know, to do the exact same thing every single time, and it's not written down or even notated, and it's just get a metronome out, or, you know, if you're practicing your time by yourself as well, you can do it without a metronome, but I would recommend starting with a metronome and just, you know, walk notes at this speed. If that's too fast for you, then, you know, you can easily go slower. You can do minims at that tempo, so you can do it half the speed, or you can do it double time, but I'd recommend this speed is about good, especially if you're learning to get some better time. It doesn't matter what notes you're playing. You don't have to care about what notes you're playing, but, you know, just play notes and try and keep a consistent driving rhythm, because ultimately if your quavers, minims, semi-breves and whatnot aren't in time, then you don't have any hope of having any of the more complex rhythms in time, like triplets. So you always want to be practicing things like this, and you can do this like literally any time of the day. You can just be around and you can just be noodling, and then, you know, maybe if you're doing something, waiting for something to upload, watching a YouTube video, just do this. You don't even really have to be thinking about it, but do it, and then the more you do it, the easier it will become to do this. And if you can hold a conversation while you're doing it as well, like I'm doing right now, that's great. And I think actually it's not too hard to start doing that. But yes, if this is too fast for you, then by all means go slower. But don't worry about what notes you're playing, don't worry anything about the notes. Just worry about that you're getting clean tone and clean rhythm, as tone is another contributing factor. And if your tone's bad, then perhaps your technique's bad, which is also causing your bad rhythm as well. And I've also got another video on tone if you want to go and watch that, so I will link that above. So you've done your exercises. What do you do now that your rhythm is a little bit better? What rhythmic ideas could you use? Now, this is probably in its most basic form, but once you've got good rhythm, you can go back to a line like this, which is just quavers, and, you know, it's just fast speed quavers. And, you know, start playing some fast lines if you want to do some fast stuff, like maybe this bit from Donna Lee. Like, that's always a great line, I think, technically, because there's a lot going on. If you look at I didn't play that in sync in my head and on the bass there, but either way, regardless of that, it's quite a technical line to get your fingers around, and it's good to get good time on some technical lines. And you can even take it slower, and ultimately you do want to start slow with rhythm. But let's presume that you've got your rhythm dialed in now and you've done that exercise, but you can also do exercises like this. Anything like that, just riffs or short things that sound nice, excerpts from things to keep going, but some rhythmic ideas that you could use. The first one is the triplet, and often you usually play it as a hammer-on. So essentially, if you take this walking bass line, essentially if we got a triplet, it would be, that's how it would fit into that, because it's 3 notes per every 1 note rather than 2, because it's not double the speed, because it's not, or that's what it would be if it was 16ths rather than, I mean, quavers, if it was that, because this is quarter notes, and that's what it would be for triplets. And sometimes even mine can be a bit sloppy, to be honest. And the way that you do a hammer-on, if you don't know, is you play your first note, and then you don't pluck the next note, your finger presses on it and then you pull it off. And you don't have to do it a tone, you could do it minor third, semitone. A major third is perhaps a little bit too much down there. But yeah, essentially, a tone is usually what it would be, but sometimes a semitone as well. And that's always a good one to use there. So getting those triplets dialed in is good as well. And then, once you've got triplets and you've got, that basic rhythm with, quavers, crotchets, minims, whatnot, you're pretty much golden for most solos, really, unless you go into some much more syncopated stuff, and then you just really got to work on your timing there for that stuff. And yes, you can do like stuff in 5 as well, and then divide the beats into 5, but ultimately you're doing the same thing as you're doing in the triplet, just that one, and you're just adding more notes per each beat, essentially. But once you've got an understanding of triplets, and you've got an understanding of, just all the basic semi-breve, minim, quaver, crotchet, 16th notes, once you've got the understanding of that and you can play those cleanly at whatever speeds that you might want to play them at, like you could play them at this speed, then, you're golden, really. And actually, I think a good test of your skill is if you just take one note. So you don't do all of what I was doing there when you're just going all over the place. If you just take one note, let's just take F, for example. And if we just play, if it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 E. Essentially, you can practice it like that. So that's when all the way from those semi-breves all the way to 16th notes, and getting good 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 E and a 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 E. Good 16th notes at a tempo maybe like 120 BPM or something is good, and you could subsequently do quavers at 240, but 16ths are quite good to think of when you think of it in your head of a 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 E. I find it's easier to think of that than 1 and 2 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 and 1 and 2 and 3 and 4. Sometimes for like bass stuff, I find it more natural when I'm practicing rhythm, faster rhythm, to be 16th notes, whereas obviously in things like jazz, it's going to be quavers basically all of the time. But yeah, practicing that 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 E and a 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 E. And maybe even switching the notes, so 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 E and a 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 E and a 1 E and a 2 E and a 3 E and a 4 E. It's also actually probably better to say it as well while you're doing it, because it can actually be quite confusing as well. So once you get the words down, which even I haven't, as you saw there, I was struggling a little bit going through that, but say it as well as you're playing it. I always find saying it, it might sound like a little bit weird, maybe a bit cringe, you might say, but if you say it while you're doing it, then often you get better results rhythm-wise. Don't know why really, but I often find that that is the case there. So if you want a good tune that works well around this concept of the 1E and a 2E and a 3E and a 4E and a 1E and a 2E and a 3E and a 4E, is Vulfpeck's Deantown, which is sort of a Teen Town reference from Jaco Pastorius. Another great tune, which is incredibly difficult to play, but definitely is a masterful one. But yeah, Deantown by Vulfpeck is a great one if you want to practice that. So I'll link to a video of someone who's done tabs for that, so that you can have a look at that and perhaps even learn it for yourself, because it is a cracking bass line, great tune to go through, and there's some good soloing sort of things in there as well. It's frankly a great bass line, great tune, and I think you should learn it if you want to practice these foundations of rhythm. It's a great tune for practicing foundations of rhythm because it's got syncopated stuff and it's got 16th note stuff and it's got everything that you could possibly want to practice around rhythm. So go and have a look at that tune. It really is one which I would recommend for rhythm practice exercises. But anyway, that's all I've got for today's video. Go learn Deantown by Vulfpeck, such a fantastic tune. And hopefully now you've got more of an idea of rhythm in soloing for bass solos. So I'll see you all in the next one. Bye.